Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Dark Souls 3 OST reaction. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we now have to contend ourselves with one of the Lords of Cinder. Now, I've beaten this boss many times before, and this video is not necessarily a conversation about the overall quality of the boss fight or the lore, because probably Aldritch is probably one of the low points of the game. Not the build-up to this boss, however. The fact that you revisit Anor Londo, the best area in the first game, and you have to travel through basically a decrepit and crumbling Anor Londo. The giant blacksmith dies. Everything is covered in slime. There's nothing but deacons hanging around the area, basically patrolling the place. And then there's a boss door right where Ornstein and Smo used to be. And by the time you get inside, you confront, well, what is a... You see, the problem I kind of always had with, like, of how the fight goes, because anybody who knows anything about the actual, like, the fight, well, the idea of, like, Aldritch is that he's meant to be this giant puddle of slime. The idea is that he spent his time devouring men and become something of... He became basically like, I can't believe I'm having to like use this as a comparison, but you know the Absorbaloff from that one really bad episode of Doctor Who? That's kind of the only way I can actually describe Aldritch. He's meant to be a devourer, somebody who consumes just everything he comes across. Hence why he's referred to here as the Devourer of Gods, as opposed to Saint of the Deep. So you get in, and it looks as if Aldritch is somehow like become an amalgamation of crossbreed Priscilla because he uses her scythe in this fight. He also has Gwendolyn's body and the long cloaky cloak of bones that you would see when you fight Gravelord Nito. So Aldritch is sort of a bit of a combination of various different bosses and various different movesets. But I know anyone who's ever played, well, actually fought against Aldritch themselves, will know that the boss feels a little unpolished and a little underdeveloped, because it can only be described as difficult if you literally spam attacks when he appears in one corner of the arena, and he just casts those tiny purple orbs all over the place that home in on you. And I've had many playthroughs of Dark Souls 3 where I can beat Aldritch in my first go, but the only real point to it at that point is basically just to get further into the game, which, considering that what else comes in store in this series, is a bit disappointing, all things considered. And, well, I'm kind of glad that this is the sort of concept that didn't really, like... I don't know if this is the sort of thing that continues into Elden Ring, is that they take inspiration from previous design and previous, like, movesets. But I will say this. The best part about this fight, including, like just what I said about Champion's Grave Tender, is the score for this is fantastic. Because it's a remastered and a slightly altered version of the music you use when you fight Gwendolyn and the Moonlight Butterfly. I say different because they use the same track twice for the Moonlight Butterfly boss fight, which isn't really a boss fight. And if it is, it's literally one of the very worst that they've done. And Gwendolyn is, well, it's the same when you fight Gwendolyn. So imagine that, but they actually do something very creative and very different for it. Because, well, okay, I suppose while I'm here, I'm going to do it just to give you guys a little bit of a walkthrough about what I mean by this. Okay, so we'll just... I mean, just to give you guys an idea, this is literally like when you fight the Moonlight Butterfly and Gwendolyn. It's good. It's hollow and it's howling, and there's something of like a tranquil beauty to it all, about how, in spite of, well, you have to fighting both fight the butterfly and then Gwendolyn, is that it plays as though it's not really something to be taken proud of. It's almost as though it's interesting because it doesn't really. It sounds like it should have been part of like something like a different area of the game, like the Shrine of Amara, as opposed to be used in an actual boss fight. Which is actually one of the few things that the Shrine of Amara, the area, that very difficult area in Dark Souls 2, that's the sort of thing they actually get down. But it's much better when they revamp it for Dark Souls 3, as you guys will see. So, here we go. Let's remind ourselves. So, we're just traversing through the fog and... See what I'm talking about? It's intertwined with dread. Almost as though, like, if you were actually meant to be fighting Aldritch without him having consumed Gwendolyn and all the other characters, then this could have been... It's a beautiful way of just, like, combining two separate bosses in well, two separate ideas into one. Which is really the best thing they could have done with Aldritch. It's an amalgamation of different things. It's best orchestrated in the very tiny piano being played in the background. It's eminent of something is in this with you. It's not just about what you think about is here. There is also something else you've got to be ready to prepare for, which is also a great way to communicate the idea that it's not just different bosses with different movesets, as this pretty easily could have been. Now, for the most part, the boss fight is mostly just, it's kind of a little bit of a revamped version of Gwendolyn's moveset with the magical orbs and him shooting arrows at people. But he also does have Priscilla's lifesteal ability, as well as this one part in his second stage where he catches fire and he leaves trails around, so it damages the player even more. And as I said before, the way in how it goes into its second stage, it becomes a lot more dramatic, as though Aldritch has actually emerged and has been bumped, amped by, you know, his presence as being a Lord of Cinder, where he all catches fire and you can do more damage. But the problem is that he doesn't really gain any additional moves in his second stage. Well, not quite. Basically, it's basically just the first stage, except a little bit harder. Not because of the flame trails, not because that Aldritch can cast more purple orbs to attack you, but also because Aldritch's like a hailstorm of arrows becomes a homing storm of arrows. So you're literally just walking away and then these things will follow you until the very ends of the earth. So you just gotta basically outrun it and not get caught with your pants down by not having enough stamina. But by roughly, and that is, I suppose, one of the benefits about like maybe the way that these games have been balanced, is that even when you get to Aldritch in the game, there isn't really a reason why you can't just, you know, have enough stamina to run to the ends of the earth. You still might have some issues, and that's definitely one thing you come to appreciate. Now, as I've said before, on multiple playthroughs, I've always managed to defeat Aldritch on my first try, but and I suppose it's just down for one real reason, is that once you know what his gimmick is and how he can like teleport to different parts of the room, and you know exactly what you're going to do, it can be done very easily. Just just take your chances and hit him, and try not to get hit too much. That's basically all you have to do with this boss. But even though that is basically the same thing when you play against Gwendolyn or Priscilla in the first game, it's still just about the same thing, I suppose. Still all good, and the music really sets the tone as it should do. And with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys enjoyed this reaction to Aldritch, the Devourer of Gods, and this semi-rant about boss design and how it plays into that effect. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.